Is there someone there who might answer?
Yes, Eddie, we're here. Can you hear us?
It is only a ghost of Kramer speaking.
That's right. Eddie, you need to turn on your camera. Oh, there you are. Okay.
Hey there, guys, what's happening?
Hey, guys. Eddie.
Ladies and gentlemen, I should say. I can't hear anything from the audience.
Wait, we can hear you, Eddie. Can you hear us?
Well, if everybody would say hello at one time, it would be great.
1, 2, 3.
Hello, Eddie Kramer.
It's great to see you all.
Great. Zoom is one of the weirdest ways of communicating still to this day. But thank you for, plugging through this, the technology and joining us today.
Not a problem.
And
I wish I could be. I wish I could be there in person. I've been to NYU a couple of times in the past. That was a few years ago. It's a fantastic facility, and of course you're within a hop, skip, and a jump of. There's a studio, I think, on 8th Street. Can't remember the name. Anybody know what that's called? I can't remember.
Electric Lady?
Yeah.
Electric Lady?
Yeah, it had to do with some electrified lady thing, In fact, when Jimmy told us the name, we went, "Oh, that's interesting," and then we got used to it pretty quickly, and we said, "Oh, this is cool."
We have to be clear when Eddie is talking about Jimmy right now, it's not Jimmy Page. It's
Jimmy Hendrix.
Yeah, guy. He played left hand, had fuzzy hair. That guy.
Yeah, that guy. Eddie, we have been studying Led Zeppelin from so many different angles, and we're really getting deep into the sound, the recorded sound of the band right now. And what can you tell us about what was different, what distinguished Led Zeppelin from like many of the other groups, like the Beatles, like Rolling Stones, like Jimi Hendrix?
Wow.
I know.
I wouldn't want to start making comparisons between Hendrix and Zeppelin. I think that's a little unfair, although there are some comparisons there. I would suggest if we left Jimmy out of that, because he is in a stratus all by himself. Although Zeppelin probably was the greatest rock band I ever recorded, that's for sure, but a rock and roll band. I don't think there will ever be another Jimi Hendrix, but that's another story. But if you compared Zeppelin to any of the other contemporary bands, I think the difference was the fact that you had two key members of the band, mainly Mr. Page and Mr. Jones, who were ex-session musicians, and I think that really paid off in the long run. The fact that they were so highly skilled, and not only was John Paul Jones a great bass player, excuse me, but he was a fantastic arranger, which begs another story, which we don't have a picture of right now, but I have this clear memory. Actually, this is the first time I really got to know him. Was in 1967 at Olympic Studios in London. You all know where Olympic was, everybody? Raise your hands or don't. Nobody knows. Olympic. Nobody heard of Olympic. What? I can't see. What? Say something. Who's saying something?
We're saying yes.
Okay. Yeah. So Olympic was definitely the greatest studio, and besides Abbey Road. And in fact, when the Beatles couldn't get it to Abbey Road, they came to us. They came to Olympic. Once again, another story for another day. But I remember very clearly in the early days of Olympic in '67, we were setting up for a session, and in would walk John Paul Jones wheeling his B15 bass amp, his bass over one arm and the charts under another, wheel that in, go up to the conductor's rostrum, put down the charts, and plug in his bass. We put a couple of screens around it, and then he would conduct the entire 60-piece orchestra with his bass in his hand and it would be the most brilliant pop arranging.
Amazing.
Just, yeah, fantastic stuff. Now, Jimmy Page, now that's another story. Since we're starting at the beginning, we might as well go all the way back. So if you can imagine, 1963, this was my second year as an engineer. I started in 62, which makes it an awful long bloody time to have been in the business, somewhere around 60 odd years, but that's another story. So I was a young assistant engineer, and my boss was a fantastic English engineer who could pretty much record everything. And I was telling the guys earlier, his name was Bob Auger, and he taught me stuff that was just amazing. We recorded classical music with three U47s and a 3-track Ampex, and 90 musicians in this big hall. And then the next day we'd be back at Pi Studios, which is the studio I'm referring to, and we record the Kinks. Oh. Now, guess who played guitar on one of the Kinks sessions because their guy didn't want to do it or couldn't do it? Hey, let's call Jimmy Page. You know, he's the hot young guy. And he was only, what, 17 or 18 years old then, whatever. And I wasn't that much older. But I do remember him coming in and playing, ripping off a solo, and everybody went, you know. So that was the first time. So I'm going to ask the audience, you lovely people out there, could you imagine being on a 3-track Ampex tape machine, operating that, and you had to operate it in such a way that you put tracks 1 and 3, the top and the bottom track, out of sync and record on the middle track? It's called cell sync. This was the predecessor of all of the shenanigans that we would get up to with first 8-track, then 12-track, God help us, and then 24, and then 2 24-track machines locked together. So all of this history surrounds Led Zeppelin because Page was into technology, so was John Paul Jones. They loved it. They were in the studios all the time, and they knew what it took to get a great solo or a great bass tone or a great guitar sound. And they took all that energy and knowledge, and when the moment arrived for Mr. Page and Mr. Jones to get together with the 2 guys from the north of England and make Led Zeppelin, bam. Very quick other story. Do you have time for another quick story? Because there are going to be a few.
Eddie, it's your show.
Oh, I don't know. Thank you. So anyway, cut to 1968, late 68. I was in America. I'd come to America in 1968, in April of 68, but this was the latter part of the year. And I went back to see my family, and I called up John Paul Jones, who had become a good friend. And I used to go to his house over in Hampstead. Anybody know London at all? You know where Hampstead is? It's like the high point of London. It's like up on the hill, Hampstead Heath. And we used to hang out, and definitely I think there were some green substances being smoked in those days. I wish I could hear the reaction from you guys, because
We're laughing.
I'm not here.
We
Well,
know exactly what you're
open the mic. I just wished I could hear that feedback, you know. So he, on this particular occasion, he said, "Hey, I've got something I want to play you." I said, I just finished an album. I'd like to play it to you. So he put the first Zeppelin album on, and I listened to it and I went, "Christ almighty, that is freaking awesome. That's this heavy thing. I've never heard anything like it." So what's the name of the band? And he said, Led Zeppelin. I said, "That's the stupidest bloody name I ever heard in my life." I said, "Why?" And he said, "Well, you know, boy, was I ever wrong on the choice of that name." Of course, it became associated with them, and it was one. But my initial reaction was, why? Because we're heavy, man. And then I was back in the States, and in '69, the first album had come out, which they were not happy with, by the way. I don't know if you know this, but they were definitely, they knew they could do better. I think they had a row with Glenn Jones. I wonder why.
What was it about the first album that they weren't happy about?
Well, it's in the book. I'm not going to dive.
Okay.
But it did have something to do with Glenn, I believe. Anybody know who Glenn Jones is?
Yeah, we read about how he sort of discovered the best way to record John Bonham.
Bullshit.
Why do you say that?
Experience.
Okay. Sorry to put you on the spot. Just I've
Just look. Anytime I can have a go at Glenn, I love to, and he has a go at me. It's fine. I have a different way of recording drums, and folks seem to like my technique. There was another engineer involved in this later on, Andy Jones, who I taught. Andy had a great sound. I think I had one particular one. Glenn had his thing, but I definitely feel that from myself and a few other engineers. I think we nailed it. Anyway, moving on. 1969, the band comes over and they are touring the US, and they're in New York. New York, hey. So anybody in the audience hear of a place called the Fillmore East?
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. What a wonderful place. Within walking distance of where you are now. In fact, we used to walk from Electric Lady over there. It's great. We walked everywhere. New York, you want to walk. I might be in Canada, but I may be British, South African, Russian, Polish, American, whatever. But New York is still in my heart. I lived there for like 40 years, so I feel that pulse. God, I miss it. I really do. Anyway, so they play the Fillmore East, a couple of shows. I was there at one of the shows. I took a whole bunch of pictures of them. We may see one or two of them tonight. And after one of the shows, Page said to me, actually, no, I'm sorry. He indicated that, they were in town and they're trying to put something together with this album they were working on. And then I got a call from their office and said, hey, Jimmy wants to know if you would like to mix the album and do some overdubs and cut more tracks. I said, yeah, sure. Great. I wasn't doing anything except building Electric Lady studios, but for them, not a problem. And we went into a little studio uptown on 54th Street. I think it was called, was it Juggy? I think it was either Juggy Sound or one of the other studios. They were very similar. 8-track studio, sort of narrow closet type studio.
Was it a jingle studio? Mostly?
They did jingles. They did some R&B,
But it wasn't one of the primary.
No.
Like RCA or.
No. This was just what we could get at the time, and it was great. I mean, there's a bunch of great tracks that we cut on that. Anyway, we did this, and then we went to A&R. Anybody here? A&R Studios it used to be on Broadway. That's where Phil Ramone was the king. Phil Ramone was the king there. And I went in a couple of days before we mixed. It was middle of the week, and just an afternoon, Jimmy brought in this tiny little Ampeg amp. I think it was about this big. I think it had an 8-inch speaker, maybe it was a 10-inch speaker with it, had a little sloping front. And he plugged in, we had it in the little booth to the side, and cranked that sucker up. God damn, it sounded good. Stuck a 57 on it, put some kind of compressor, which I can't even remember at this point. It was probably an 1176 or something similar. And we did some more overdubs, and pretty much that was it. And then we mixed Zeppelin II over a weekend, Saturday and Sunday. That's it. Whole album done. And that's the jumping off point for us for now, but that'll just get us into the mood. And just imagine working off of 8 tracks and going to a 2-track machine. That's the way to go.
Should we listen to a track from that? You asked us to play Whole Lotta Love. Should we
Queued
do
up.
that? Do we want to play that, or do you want to?
Well, let me ask, how many folks are in the audience there? I can't really tell, like 15, 20?
Yeah, between 15 and 20.
All right, raise your hands. All of you poor suckers out there who want to hear a track from this album. You're not raising your hands. Ah, there is life in the audience. Yes. Hey. Wait, let me ask you all a question, starting with the lady in front with the blonde hair. And going from go to your right. Raise your hands if any of you play an instrument.
Not me.
Okay, well, that's okay. But you're a lover of music, I presume. Oh, great. Okay. So, but most of you have some kind of musical background, otherwise you wouldn't be sitting in this room. All right. How many of you in the room have a turntable to be able to play vinyl? Whoa.
Good.
There's a high percentage. Jeez Louise. That's very encouraging. Damn.
Yeah.
I want to come visit all of you guys, and I want to hear one record from each house. No, I'm just kidding. I wouldn't do that.
Well,
All
we
right.
should visit, so.
Eddie, we do want you to come down here, though.
Yeah.
We would love for you to do that.
I would love to very much. That room looks fantastic.
So
Okay.
the Robert Ludwig version, and you wanted to talk about that at all now or after?
Let me do that after.
Okay.
So we're going to play Whole Lotta Love like you requested.
Congratulations. Enjoy.
You'll hear it too.
Mazel tov. By the way, I couldn't hear because your microphone just shut down automatically.
Oh, it gated?
Yeah, it did. It gated, yeah.
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
I'll play it for you when you come,
Right.
so you can hear it for real.
But I got a question or two regarding details on there, like the pre-echo, that
If you give me a second, I'll give you the whole
Hey,
story.
stepping back and you've got the mic.
All right, no problem. Wait, first of all, audience, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm sure you've heard it before. How does it sound off that vinyl?
Come on, there's no 11. You've all seen Spinal Tap. It's 11.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, you guys liked it.
Oh, yeah.
So there, let me tell you, there's two little stories that we can play off of. One is about the record he has in his hands there, which to me is the Holy Grail, that particular pressing. And the other is the story about mixing this particular song. So we're in there at A&R. Now, you got to imagine that, excuse me. My throat is really burnt. I've been talking all day, sorry. So imagine you're in the control room at A&R, and I walk in there for the very first time, and I'm looking at this console, and I start to laugh, and I'm going, no way. We're mixing an 8-track tape on a Scully 8-track 1-inch machine, right? on a console that has rotary faders. No sliders, baby, just rotary. And 2 pan pots. And very, very minimal EQ. Okay. We had a lot of patching involved with some outboard gear like Pultex and stuff like that. But literally very, very minimal. But it did sound good. It was a very transparent console.
Was
So,
it an RCA console? Do you remember? Gates, RCA?
no, this was custom built for A&R. It was very high. It was a super high quality board because, it sounded great. But it just, I was expecting to walk in and have some Neumann faders or some paint, it was anything. But I mean, and you could tell when you were turning them, because inside there were these little nodules. So it was like you could feel the steps in there, but they were very muted. Anyway. But we put the table and we had mixed, I think, a couple of songs, but we get to this and it's like, okay, game on. I know I'm going to be panning shit. I know I'm going to need reverb with delays, et cetera, et cetera. And there was this guy who I had to call, who was the chief engineer there. His name was Shimon Ron, who later became, after this Zeppelin whole mix, I found him and I called him and I said, do you want to come and work for me? I'm building a studio for Jimi Hendrix. And he joined me. So I said, Shimon, look, here's what I want. I need this delay here. I need that. Because the patch bay was a complete gigantic mess. And I said, can you sort and find me the best EMT plate you have down there? And so he found me this. And I said, this guy's great. He's sharp. He gets it. So we're in the middle of mixing. And it gets to that lovely point where you're all going, I know this thing. It goes, woman. And then you hear this other woman. Why are we hearing another woman? Because here's your 8 tracks. Track 8 was the last vocal, but it wasn't the one that we wanted to use. We wanted to use track 7. 7 was pushed up, but 8 I was turning off, and I couldn't get rid of the damn thing. I mean, it was hidden underneath there, but I couldn't get, the pot wouldn't turn all the way. I couldn't patch it because I knew I needed it for another part of the song. So when it gets to this moment, instinctively, Jimmy's sitting next to me and he's looking at me and I'm looking at him. We both start laughing at exactly the same moment because our hands go right for the reverb on the open channel where the chunk was, and just put this reverb on it. And we were laughing, and then the panning started. But it was like our minds were so in sync with that we just said, throw some shit at it, basically. And we left it. And this, to me, illustrates the point. Leave the goddamn mistakes in, because you never know what you get. And here we are 50 plus bloody years later, and that mistake is still in there because it was a mistake. So what? Make something of it. We are so obsessed, overly obsessed today with perfection. I mean, I could clean up tracks like when you wouldn't, the mouse couldn't get by. It's not what rock and roll is about. It's hair and sweat and people playing together in a room, and mistakes are being made, and the time, oh God, click tracks. Yes, bane of our existence. Yes, we have to use them, I guess, for commercial stuff, but it's such a joy when you have musicians who can play together reasonably in time. If the time flows and it's flowing together and the chorus picks up, beautiful. It's got a life of its own. Listen to any classic rock and roll record. There was no such thing as a click track. Get out of here with that shit. I mean, come on. Let's get real here. Let's get to music, not bloody computers. Anyway, that was how. So, it's a song that is in everybody's ears. You hear it and you go and you hear, woman, and then you make, Just a mistake. Okay.
What else
You-
do you want to share with us about Whole Lotta Love? 'Cause
Well,
you-
the album, how the album got changed.
Well, there is a story there. Okay. Atlantic Records, they were that was a great label. Ahmet Ertegun, amazing guy. He could keep up with the Stones all night. You know, he would party with them and be back in the office 9 o'clock in the morning. Guy was fantastic. So the A&R department, there were several folks in there, but one of them, by the way, who did you say that it was? Who did you say whose daughter it was?
I heard that it was Erdogan's daughter who couldn't play the record.
Nope.
Okay.
Who was the chief head cook and bottle washer in the A&R department? One guy I haven't mentioned. He had a big black beard and dark hair, and he worked with Aretha Franklin and everybody.
Jerry Wexler?
Jerry Wexler. Jerry Wexler's daughter. He had a 15-year-old daughter, and she was given one of the first test pressings. And she went to school and played it on the school record player, and it jumped. Okay. Shit's about to hit the fan. But let's go back in time. About 3 weeks before, after we'd mixed the record, Jimmy Page calls me up and says, "Hello, Pagey, how you doing, mate? Hey, Kramer, listen, can you please cut that fucking record? I want it as hard as a fucking 45. Oh, all right. Now, in A&R Studios, just down the hallway from where the control was Sterling Sound. Now, anybody heard of Sterling Sound?
Sure. Yes.
Sterling Sound, that was their first venture. They had a little cutting room where Bob Ludwig was, and he had this beautiful lathe, and I'd heard about him, and I thought he was a really good guy, so I brought him in Zeppelin. We put the tapes up, and I said, look, Page wants this cut really freaking hard as we can possibly get it. All right, challenge. So we're doing some test cuts. We drop the stylus on, and we're doing the thing. We're looking under the microscope, and these grooves are going boing, boing, boing. And have you all seen under a microscope what these grooves look like? Anybody in the audience? Hello?
Nope.
Hello?
No.
What?
No.
Okay. You got to show them some pictures of what happens when the low frequencies, that's the thing that's giving you the most width, because they do this, right? When you look at the groove.
Right.
But sometimes the grooves get too close and they kiss. And that's not the band I'm talking about. So they bump into each other, and then the walls sometimes break down, and here's the groove of the stylus is in there, and here's one groove, and here's the next groove, and the stylus will then jump, it'll skip to the next one. Am I correct, sir?
Yes, most definitely.
So we saw this and we said, let's check it out. We played it. It played. It was ungodly hot. I mean, there has never been, I don't think there's ever been a side of an album that was that hot. So we cut the masters, and they go off to Atlantic. They press 100,000 or something. And then the next thing I hear, and this is where it gets really tough. So I'm down in Criteria Studios in Miami. Anybody here at Criteria Studios?
Oh, yeah.
Anybody? Who has?
Bee Gees.
Yeah. Anybody? It may be too young. You guys are too young for that. But when I talk about various studios, you should really go look them up and look at their history and look at the pictures of how we used to record in those days. This is really important stuff.
Thank
because
you.
having that knowledge about those conditions gives you a head start. Oh, wow, that's how they used to do it. And the room was this big by that, and they put the drums there. Why? That it's all part of it. If you're becoming an engineer, this is part of stuff you got to know. Criteria. So I'm down there, and I get a call from the front. Hey, Eddie, Ahmed Erdogan wants to see you. Okay. So we go down the hall, and he's sitting there, and he's looking at me, and I'm going, oh shit. I sit down, he says, Kramer, who told you to cut that fucking record so hard? I said, what you mean? I don't give a fuck about Jimmy fucking Brain. Do you realize how many records we had? We scrapped 100,000. He went, oh, I've never seen him like this. Well, I'm sorry, I'm just doing what the artist told me. Yeah, I got out of there as quick as I could, but I definitely felt the lashes on my back. So what did Atlantic do? They scrapped the record, then they went back in and they recut it. They pulled back the bottom end and they cut it at a lower level. So subsequently, anything after this, because on the acetate, he'll show you if when you're doing an acetate master, the mastering engineer will initial it, and in this case it's RL, Robert Ludwig, and then the stamp number and all that. It's on the run-out groove. I looked for 40, 50 years trying to find one of these, and I haven't. And he has one. Wow, I am so...
Get you a copy.
I am so... First of all, I'm really glad that you have one. It proves the point. My story is what it is. And second of all, I want one.
I'm going to get you one.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on. Enough stories. Let's play some music.
What a question about this loudness, right? Was there a relationship between how successful a band was, so selling a gazillion records, and then the
By the way, I can't see you. I can't. Can you come over to where the...
I'm sorry, it's Jonathan again.
Oh, there you are.
My question is, did the more successful the band, did the record companies demand that the bandwidth be decreased so that the records would be playable on cheaper and cheaper, more common machines, or was this just happened with this one record?
Well, this is the only one I was involved with, intimately, and
but subsequent records were they just...
Everybody knew the story, and of course the record companies are going to be a little bit more conservative, and of course that would happen. But I have to say, though, that it was skating on thin ice there. I mean, I can understand it from a commercial point of view, but I mean, you hear it, it sounds freaking awesome.
Yeah.
And I'm so thrilled that the audience has been able to hear what I supervised cutting. What do you all like that story?
Yeah, we did.
Thank you. All right. Let's move on. Let's play some music. We're 45 minutes in. We just done one song.
What do you want to play next?
Well, where are we going next? Should we go to Houses of the Holy?
If you want, sure.
Well, you gave us two choices from Houses of the Holy, and then one from Physical Graffiti.
Can you stand where I can see you? Can you come around a bit? There we go. There, now I can see you. Hey.
Your choice. What are you feeling? Physical Graffiti or Houses of the Holy? Because you both next to the choices, you say nice story here. I guess the question is, what changed between Led Zeppelin II, which was 69, and then by the early 70s, they're flying high, and I mean they're like
they were the biggest band in the world. I know we don't have Black Country Woman, which I did.
We can cue that up if you want.
Help me out. I don't know these albums so well, so.
It's okay. Let's find out first.
Oh, I mean, okay, we got a choice of either Dancing Days or
Jermaine.
I think Black Country Woman, because it's got a fun little story before it, if you don't mind.
Do you want to do the story before and set it up, or play it first?
No, I want to set it up.
Okay.
Black Country Woman.
Oh, by the way, do you have the picture of them?
I can't get to it right now. I'm so sorry to say. I'm having problems with my screen, and we have you. I don't want to touch any of the controls right now. I'm going to share it with them next class, next week.
Oh, what a bummer, because, all right, so the picture that we were going to show you, oh, that's a bummer. I really want to show them. You don't want to take a chance, eh?
The screen is messed up already.
Oh, okay. Then we're not touching it. I'll tell you what. I'll tell you the story. Imagine when you get to see the photograph, this is what's happening as I'm pressing the record button. I'm in a truck. It's the Rolling Stones mobile truck. And we're in Mick Jagger's mansion called Stargroves. And the truck is parked in the back of the house. Cables are run inside. There's Page's amp is facing an empty fireplace, and the mics are hanging down behind that and down the chimney. Bass is in another room. John Bonham has his beautiful, he has this gorgeous, I guess it's like a conservatory with a semicircular panel glass window in the front, big room. And it's fantastic. Of course, and Robert has his place where he's singing as well. But on this particular occasion, there's two pictures you'll see which sets this whole thing up. So if you guys can tell Ashley to make sure he shows you, number one, a picture of Jimmy Page and Robert Plant on the lawn. Jimmy's playing acoustic guitar and Robert's playing harmonica. And they're trying to put the track together for this song called Black Country Woman. And it was a beautiful day, unusual in England. It's beautiful, you know, that when you see the second shot, which is a color shot, you'll see the truck, the house in the background, and there's Robert sitting on a stool about to sing. And there's little daisies coming up through the grass. It's all very nice. But the real idea here was, we got this freaking huge mansion with shit everywhere, microphones in every possible place. But it was a nice, they said, let's record outside. Oh, okay, that's a good idea. We dragged the mics out, and they actually cut the basic track for this song outside. And then we played it back, and of course we were back in everybody was back on their headphones, and drums and shit came in later. But the whole intro was done outside. So I'm in the truck, just about to hit, no, actually I'd hit record, excuse me. And there's Robert, because he's singing to the track that has been cut. And just as he was about to sing, you hear this freaking huge noise. It's a 4-engine, like a World War II fighter bomber flying overhead. And I mean, it is thunderous. And he just goes, and I said to Robert, "Oi, what about this airplane?" And he says, "Nah, leave it." And that's on the CD, and it's actually on the album. And that's when he says, "Nah, leave it." Okay, so that's the story. So if you want to play the song, that's the setup.
What's the matter with you, mama?
Thanks for the photo, Eddie. Oh, and there's Jimmy alone. Amazing. Could you hear the music from your end? No.
Nah, nothing. If you don't get the microphone close, it just shuts down.
Yeah, sorry about that. Well, we'll try that next time.
So those are the two guitars on the lawn. I don't know if you can see it.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, you see the daisies.
Oh yeah, you weren't kidding. Oh yeah. But that was that in at Mick Jagger's place?
Yep.
Okay. Did
So
you
I managed to find a couple just so you could get a sense. I mean, obviously it's low res and it's coming across the internet. So.
it works though. It was worth doing that. Thank you.
Mhm. All right, what's next?
Well, I was going to ask, you showed a photo of John Bonham. Obviously, there's no Led Zepp without John Bonham.
Nah,
Tell us about when you first heard him and what approach you took to, recording him and making sure you got the sound right.
well, like I told you before, when I first heard him, first on the record, I heard of John Paul Jones's album. Jesus, it's like immediately you knew. First of all, you knew the band was world class and was going to change everything. Second of all, his drumming is just phenomenal. It's the greatest rock drummer ever. Period. End of story. I mean, look, I've worked with Mitch, who I absolutely adore, but he's a different style of drummer. Mitch, in his world and his realm, the best.
You're talking
yeah. Who else is going to call Mitch? Hey, what's the bonjour? So, yeah, I mean, Bonham, pound for pound, he was a big bastard. I mean, he was, and you never wanted to mess with him when he got drunk because he could turn pretty ugly. But he was very sweet to me, and he knew I could get him what he wanted, and he was happy. He was a happy camper with me. But that's another story. Well, there's a lot of there's stories that keep coming up, and I have to keep pushing them back because they're in the book that we're doing the documentary. So I'm kind of selecting things. But
by the way, on getting the documentary started.
I missed that. I can't see you, by the way.
Yeah, congratulations on getting the documentary started.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it's great. It's it's a lot of work, but it's going to be fun. So imagine going into the studio to record Bonham, which I did in New York, at that little studio. Good grief, his timing, so tight. And of course, having John Paul Jones lock in such a way, those two just knew how far to push and pull together. It was just so instinctive. And it sometimes left me speechless, quite frankly, because as I was then for a brief moment, just thinking about how dynamic they were and how excited. Bonham was, he would drive it hard because he knew he wanted to get something out of it. And then he would sometimes do a fill that wasn't rehearsed, because he and Page used to rehearse a lot about fills. Sometimes he had a very difficult fill that Page wanted him to play that he knew Bonham could play, but he would have to guide him through it. And once he got it, I mean, he was like a machine. He could see the end vision the same way that Page had the same end vision. Jimi Hendrix had it. Certainly Page, he has it. And Bonham, I mean, he was just like, oh, I can see the end. I know where I'm going. And he would execute. And then he would throw in surprise shit that would just, you go, what the fuck? What was that? Amazing. I mean, what can I say? To record him, very easy. You could use 3 57s. I don't care. It didn't have to be condenser mics, and it would still sound like Bonham. But you know, in those days, particularly at Mick Jagger's house, you know, I used 2 overheads, and sometimes I put a center mic up just to get the left, center, right thing going, and put him in a nice room and let him have at it. It's like it was a machine. It was wonderful.
Thank you for that. You know, I want to ask the students if they have any questions right now and try and
Please.
get the interaction going. Guys, if you have any questions, comments you'd like to make, you know, this is a really rare moment, rare access to Eddie. You know, you don't have to have anything right now, but think about, you know, what you'd like to ask. Anyone want to jump in and be brave?
These were all analog recordings that so far we're talking about everything is analog and done on 1-inch. What machines?
And then later on was 16.
Pardon? Yeah.
Later on it was 16. Yeah.
We have a question from a student here. Steven.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us. I loved your comment about putting in Robert.
I can't see him. Where is the guy?
Or
Jump
Steven.
up there.
Hey, nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. I loved your comment about you and Jimmy Page both, you know, just trying to, you said, I think, throw shit on Robert Plant's mistake vocal for Whole Lotta Love. And it reminded me of how Ron Nevison, when he talked about putting phase on Bonham's crashes and drums and Kashmir, said he just wanted to put bullshit there, but didn't know if it would work out, and it did. And then you talked about the value of a mistake. And that being said, both, you know, between Page and John Paul Jones, there's an incredible amount of technical knowledge and mastery of instruments. And kind of in your perception of music, do you think it comes down, at least to making good like rock and roll records, a mix of mastery and mistakes and kind of?
Oh, you just said a very good thing. You said a mix of mastery and mistakes.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, I'd like to use that. That's very clever, and I'll give you credit. No, it's great. It is. I mean, what I was talking about earlier was the fact that you got a rock and roll band, but 2 professionals who had been through the ringer, you know, as session guys, can read music, can write music, understood the variety of guitars. I mean, look at Page, acoustics, mandolins, any and all of that, 16, 12 string, and this deep knowledge of the guitar and how it works and how it best works. And you know, he said he was the sloppiest guitar player in the world, but on a good day, he could be really fantastic. And that's absolutely true. But he had a vision, as we talked about that, this long-term blinkers on, there it is. I mean, I feel I'm like that too, to a large degree, because the moment I hear the song, I can hear it mixed in my head. That's it. I know exactly where I'm going to go. I know the EQs. I can see and hear and feel the layers. With Hendrix, it was a different story. He used colors as a defining of sounds, a definition of his definition of sounds. And it's because at Electric Lady, we were very fortunate. We had white carpet on the walls, and we could wash the walls in a variety of colors and paint the walls with different tone colors. And you say, hey man, can you give me some of that like purple, man? You know, I'm saying, yeah, sure, Jimmy. We're done. And he was very cool with that. So whatever you can do to make the artist comfortable, to help them figure out what is it that's in their head, how we get that out. And if you have to talk about colors or elephants or sewer drains, I don't care what it is you're talking about. This is the description of what's in their brain. You have to try to get that out and interpret it. And music is a collaborative thing, you know. I love to collaborate with the artists I work with. you know, once they trust you, then the collaboration, it just opens up a whole other conversation. And trust is a big thing, you know. Bonham trusted me to get a sound page. He knew that I could get, I mean, that's what you have. It was a working relationship where trust is so important. You don't want to screw that up.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good, very good question. Can I have that quote?
Yeah, you're free to use it.
Thank you.
We got another student here. Tell us who you are.
Hi, I'm Matthew. I'm well, I love all of your work. I didn't know your name, but I know all of the records you've done. But well, I was gonna ask about Zeppelin, some of Bonham's drums, but I was also curious. You said Bonham was the best drummer. So what are your thoughts on Keith Moon then?
Well, let me define that. So I look at the whole rock and roll era of which Zeppelin, The Who, Stones, Stones are a different animal. Let's just define that. Charlie Watts is in a world all by himself, as is Mitch Mitchell in his world all by himself. There are certain drummers that are just standouts, they are. But when you look at the overall picture of the rock era, where Zeppelin came in and just kicked ass, there was nobody in the world like him. Hard hitting, but with dynamics, and they could play at ridiculous volume and then drop it in a nanosecond down to super quiet. Their dynamic playing was fantastic. This is nothing to say negative about Keith Moon. I loved Keith. He was great. I never worked with him. I hung out with him a few times. Brilliant drummer. But you can't really compare the power of Bonham in the groove, doing his ridiculous fills and staying in the groove and making this thing just feel like, oh, you got to just go with it. Magnificent. There is no other drummer I've ever heard who does that, who did that.
My real question was about, I wasn't sure if you were there for the Zeppelin IV recording of how I've heard stories, but I wanted to hear from you if you were there for when they recorded When the Levee Breaks in the stairwell. That wasn't you?
No, but I know how that was done, and we got a very similar effect at Stargroves. If you listen to Jamaica, well, it's not Dire Maker, by the way. Anybody make that mistake? If you know what Dire Maker means, it's not that. It's D'*YERMAKER. Jamaica means did you make her? Or Jamaica as a slang word. Duh. Okay. So if you listen to that track, there's the most fantastic open killer drum sound because it's in that room and the whole thing just opens up. And when he does the fills, it's just like it takes your head off. And it's the same kind of sound as Headley Grange. Headley Grange had a little bit higher longer decay time because the mics were up 25 feet on a balcony looking down, and there was a lot more open space. But the same basic principle.
Gotcha. Thank you.
My pleasure.
And this is Ava.
Hey, Ava.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Are you from Sweden?
No, well, it's really funny because my stepsister is moving from Sweden to New York today. So,
Oh, wow. Okay.
but I was just gonna ask, I'm sure you watched like a lot of collaboration between the band. So, I was just gonna ask if you could describe their musicianship in 3 words. How would you describe it?
The question is about collaboration. I'm not sure if I get the question.
Collaboration and musicianship. If you could describe their musicianship, I guess, moreover than collaboration. So if you could describe their musicianship in 3 words, how would you describe it?
3 words, I would say it's very tough. I would have to come up with something like an ad slogan or something like that. Imaginative, hard-hitting, and emotional.
Oh, thank you.
Wasn't exactly 3 words, but it's close.
The mantra was there. Who else?
Another question here.
Hi, I had a question about, so in our class, there's been like a handful of readings that mention like in the studio just how like particular like Led Zeppelin was with like how they wanted it to sound, like they knew like what they wanted, and I just wanted to ask like, have you seen that like in other musicians that you've worked with, or like was Led Zeppelin just to like another degree of like how prepared they were and how particular they were with their sound?
When you're looking at bands from that era, from the 60s, well, go back to the Beatles. I was very fortunate. I worked with them twice. I did Baby You're a Rich Man and All You Need Is Love. And talk about being particular. I mean, fortunately, they had a really good producer, George Martin. But, you know, when you're in the studio and the clock is ticking, and even if it's not ticking, you know, as an artist, Beatles, Stones, well, maybe the Stones not so much, but definitely Beatles, Hendrix, very particular, Zeppelin, very particular, even Kiss. Now, I mean, I could bring them up. You know, bands, when they go in the studio, theoretically, if they've got their shit together, they have a plan. They've rehearsed, please God, for the most part. They've been with a producer who's insisting on rehearsing for weeks on time to make sure that when they go in the studio, they're not going to waste a lot of time. Although there was a period in the mid-70s where bands would just go in and book the studio for a year and just take a lot of drugs and whatever the hell happened. I stayed away from all of that shit because I couldn't stand that. Didn't appeal to me. I want a band that's going to come in and kick my ass because it makes me excited that the spark is flying. And even if they don't get on the first, second, third, fourth take, Hendrix used to sometimes come in and 2 takes, nail it. Other times we'd be in there for like 12 hours working on the damn song and come back 2 days later and then recut it. That's part of the process. Like I keep saying, there's a vision that most of these artists have in their heads. And it's my job, or people like me, who are producers, engineers, who have the same vision and have the ability to try to tap into what is coming out of the artist. There's an energy level and a musical intensity that you want to capture. And that's the thing. Have that finger on the button ready to go the moment they step in that studio, because you never know. Somebody will play a couple of chords and I missed it. What do you mean you haven't been running it? Yeah, I'm hoping I'm getting around to what you're thinking.
Yes.
Making music in a studio is a tough thing, and making the atmosphere comfortable and groovy, lights down, candles, whatever it takes, you know. It's all part of the thing, you know. You want your musicians to come in and feel, I'm at home. Okay, I'm going to put my feet up and chill out for a while the acoustic guitars are trying to figure out their tuning, you know, all that sort of stuff. But it's more than that. You want to be on a one-on-one with the artist and understand what the song is about and what's the emotional connection. If you can find that, you're in.
Thank you so much.
Shay. This is Shay.
Hi, Shay.
Can you hear me?
If you can come a little closer, I'd like you to.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, beautiful. Thank you.
I have a question. So, was Led Zeppelin's success and popularity solely based on their musicianship or their technological creativity?
Actually, I think there's an element that you're missing. It had what you just said is correct, but there was another thing, and this is the thing we have not talked about. sex. You had Robert Plant, the singer, who was a sex god. And when he went on stage, women just went completely nuts. Not only was he a great singer, the guys in the audience dug him because he was such a cool image, but women went completely berserk. So there you have the magical formula, a great band, tight, imaginative, great songs, tremendous power, but then there's this guy with all the hair and, you know, no shirt and hair, and you got it. That's the magic formula.
To be honest, I watched the film, The Sun Remains Sing, yesterday in class. To be honest, Robert Plant on stage, to me, he looks more feminine.
Feminine. Well, he would absolutely, he would agree with you.
Voice is so high.
Even though he's not a homosexual, but he plays that role very well. He knows what he's doing, and he's great.
Has the sexual magic. Like, yeah,
sexual magic. I mean, you could say there was sexual magic between him and his audience, and he communicated that in the way he sang as well. I mean, okay, if you look back in popular music, go all the way back to the turn of the last century, when jazz first came up, the jazz singers of the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, when Elvis Presley hit the stands with his show, women, girls went completely berserk. They did the same thing with the Beatles. It's just history repeating itself. You know, teenage girls love good-looking guys. What are you gonna do?
All right, thank you.
Noah? Jay, thank you.
Hey, how's it going? My name's Noah.
Yo, Noah, what's up? My grandson's name is Noah. He's no relation.
That's sweet. That's a good name. Just out of curiosity, for you personally, out of all the tracks that you worked with Zeppelin, what was your favorite to work on, or just the track that you had the most fun with?
Boy, now you're asking. Well, I mean, certainly cutting them live at MSG was amazing. Madison Square Garden is fabulous. It was very exciting. Quick little story. I'm in the truck and we're behind the stage, right? And we're in the middle of recording, and you know, it's 17,000 people in Madison Square Garden, and they were jumping up and down. And all of a sudden, we're near the end of the show, and the audience is going absolutely apeshit. And all of a sudden, I'm feeling, holy crap! It feels like there's an earthquake. And I went and opened the door of the truck. The whole floor of Madison Square Garden is going up and down like that. And the truck is doing this. I'll never forget it as long as I live. It was just really cool. Other moments, yeah, recording them at Mick Jagger's house was terrific. I recorded them at Long Beach Arena. How the West Was Won, I did that record. Mixing with them at Electric Lady Studios, that was terrific. I mean, there's just so many moments, you know, in my brain when I think about it. And seeing them for the first time in 1969 at the Fillmore East, which I wish was still there, but it's not. Yeah, what else can I tell you?
Yeah. All right, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right, Noah.
We've got about 10 minutes left in the class, but we got one more question from Jonathan, and then I guess we should go out with music. But if there's any other stories that you have for us too, we'll extend to give you time to talk about it.
All right, which track are you thinking of?
One of the live tracks for sure. Either Rain Song from
I can't see you.
Yeah, either
Right.
Rain song from Song Remains the Same, or
Yeah.
Whole Lotta Love with all the added, tunes in it from How the West Was Won? No. Okay.
Let's do the shorter one.
Rain song?
I have that queued up.
Okay.
My question for you is about sound. It's more, I don't know, like meta, and that is that you created a sound with Hendrix and with like Whole Lotta Love, Stairway to. There's a sound there, and you talked about the dynamics and how important the dynamics was. And this was a period when the technology is changing. And can you talk about how you saw like capturing the dynamics, because that's the energy, right, of these artists, how you saw that, and because I make speakers, were you using the same monitor throughout all these recordings? And if you could talk about just really quickly, because I don't want to bore everybody, but
I just got to tell you, guys, I listen to stuff on some of the shittiest speakers that you can possibly imagine, and you just have to trust something. I've got a whole bunch of stories about speakers, but we don't have time tonight. There's some hilarious ones with Hendrix, which I'll save for another time.
Yeah, maybe some.
But the main speaker that we used with the 604s, you could explain to them, was this 12-inch coaxial, blah, blah, blah. But in England, here's where we'd start. It will be tannoys. And if you know the history of what a tannoy was, it was during World War II, when they would the fighters, the World War II Spitfire, and they would jump into their planes, but the guard or the captain of the base they were in would get on the tannoy speaker, which would be blasted throughout the whole place. Warm your planes up and let's get the hell out of here. Tannoy was the company that built all of this stuff. And then you cut to the era when I was there at Olympic, we had tannoy speakers, big 15-inch monitors and big boxes mounted up on the wall. They were probably not great sounding, but you get used to them. If you can make it sound good on a piece of junk, you're in.
These tannoys were actually very good speakers. Yeah.
Yeah, it depends. I mean, the acoustics in the room was what I was really getting at. I mean, nobody really knew about acoustics until maybe 20, 30 years ago. Meaning acoustics in a room and how to do it properly.
How did you know how to, I mean, like dynamics? We talked about records that were unplayable or playable only by the best equipment. And, there's a limit to how much energy and how much dynamics you have to compress. And this is an interesting subject because with digital, they could just make everything as loud as possible for, forever.
Which sucks.
Yeah, but when you were working on these things, you were making these things as loud as you could, right?
Yep.
And
okay, 3 stages. The sound would come in from a speaker which is blasting, whether it's the bass or the guitar. So you had to figure out how to record that. So I started using ribbon mics to try to soften the blow. And they would blow up. I'd use the Bayer M16. Any of you guys know about microphones at all in the audience?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I started to use ribbon mics on Hendrix, and it definitely worked on Zeppelin, et cetera, and condensers and dynamics using 3 different kinds of mics. Why? Dynamics, because you can't overload it. Ribbons, because they smooth out the top end. And the condensers, because you pour them back from the amp, and you got a beautiful blend. If you blend them all together, do a little compression and EQ, now we're talking. So we put that combination onto one track of an Ampex tape machine, and I'm banging the crap out of it because I know how far I can push the input stage of that Ampex tape machine before it'll go into distortion. And it's just before it breaks up. So I'm loading up the tape with as much level as I can get away with safely. Now in mixing, same process. I want to get away with as much level on that tape as I can humanly do without fucking it up, essentially. And so now you have a tape that's been recorded on a multi-track, and now it's on a 2-track, 1/2 inch or 1/4 inch, and that's pretty loaded up. So when the engineer and mastering puts it on, he goes, oh, okay. And he does his thing. And then we try to put as much level on the disc as humanly possible before you get fired.
Thank you.
Eddie, we got one more student question before we go to music.
Did you say stupid or student?
Oh,
Student.
it's a good one.
Okay, cool.
Hello. I
What's
was
your name?
Breaker.
Breaker.
Yes, sir.
Breaker.
Absolutely.
Dude, I love it.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you so much for talking to us today. I'm just curious.
I'll send the bill later. Don't worry.
I'll take it up with Ashley. I'm just curious what music right now is inspiring to you and exciting you. One, where we're at musically, but also maybe bands and artists that you could mention. That you
Well, at the moment, I'm working with a guy named Jake Clemens. Jake Clemens is the sax player in Bruce Springsteen's band, and he is freaking awesome. If you watch any of the videos he's up front with Bruce, has got his arm around him every night. An amazing musician. I mean, his tone with his sax is ridiculous. He's got his own band when he's not with Bruce, and I'm in the middle of an album with him, and it's pretty awesome. It really, it's a challenge because it's got a lot of shit going on. There's keyboards, there's drums, bass, guitars, keyboards, sax, loads of background vocals and great lead vocals. It's just a big sound and very exciting. And now to contrast with that, I'm working with an artist. Her name is Astrid Young. Now you may have heard of her brother, Neil Young.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, right. So there you go. She's fabulous. She sang with him for many years on the road. And now she's doing her own album. This is up in Canada where I am. And that's where I'm up to right now. I mean, some of the commercial music that we hear today, I mean, some of it's good, Don't like it as much as I like finding artists like these who are individuals who have had experience and come in with great songs. I love songs. I mean, the 90s were cool. The 2000s were cool. Yeah, there's some good stuff. I tell you what, there's a bunch of young artists on the up. I'm not going to mention names right now because I'm about to work with one of them, but there's some good contemporary stuff. Young kids today are starting to really learn and become proficient with their instruments. That's what I'm looking for. Great talent, great songwriting talent. Can't wait for that.
Great question. Thank you, Breaker. So do you want to set up our sort of exit music? It's Ashley.
We're doing from Song Remains the Same.
Rain Song is what we have queued up.
Great. Just bang it out. Just imagine that you're in Madison Square Garden. There's 16, 17,000 screaming fans, and I'm in the truck going up and down like this.
That grew so long. Oh.
Thank you so much, Eddie.
My pleasure. It's great to see you, everybody.
And you've created and left us with so much great music that you've had hands on, and we love you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It feels good to be loved. And I love people who are coming together in this kind of an atmosphere in a highly respected university, and here you have this incredible listening room. What a privilege that must be. I we were talking about it earlier before. I know. Time to come around to the front so I can see him.
Oh,
And yes, and bring the mic close so I can talk to you guys. So it was wonderful to meet you, even though it's via Zoom. All you folks in the audience, your students, you are amazing. Thank you. It's a rare opportunity to be able to hear vinyl played on a system that really makes it come alive. And I wish I were there to share with you, but hopefully in the future, I'll be able to do that in person. Enjoy your music, enjoy your lives. Peace.
thank you. An honor.
We'll talk.
Okay, I would like that.
Cheers.